We're talking about just what happened today with the application by Zandi Khumalo turned down to bar all live broadcast of her testimony today. Let's get the reaction of Media Monitoring Africa's William Bird. William, a very good evening to you. So the media allowed to continue broadcasting this testimony, but only the audio. Is that good enough?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's what we have to bear in mind is that our courts are still coming to terms with what is a relatively new thing, which is the right of media to be present in criminal trials and to broadcast them. So I think sometimes they're probably going to get it a little bit wrong, and sometimes they'll get it completely right. I think in this instance, clearly the judge has said, well, given what the witness is asking for and given her demands, at the same time, given the need for open justice, it's important that the media can continue, especially given the other mitigating factors. And I think that the judge probably sees this as a bit of a middle ground, which is to say media can continue to broadcast full access audio, but just not the video, which is, a pity and a challenge for television broadcasters. But it means that the listening public get to hear her words as she says them.
What's also important, I suppose, from the side of the media is that when we do indeed broadcast, be it broadcast in its full sense, pictures and audio, that it's done responsibly, especially given the sensitivity around this case, one that's dragged on for a decade since this man was murdered.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen how media sometimes push the boundaries a little bit too far. I think it was just earlier this year we saw media go rushing in and approaching a witness inside the court, trying to get their views and harassing them, and that caused media to be temporarily removed from the court. So I think that as I've said, I think this is a case of media and the justice system kind of trying to find each other. Obviously, you need both of them to behave in a manner that's in keeping with the rules of the court, and you need the media to respect that this is something that is unusual and that the courts are going to take time getting used to it. But this is still a significant thing, the fact that you can get full audio, live audio of the witness giving testimony, and it is just in her case. This is the thing that's good about it, is that the default principle is that people can and that the media can be there to record. You then have to have the person putting forward, compelling reasons as to why the media shouldn't be allowed to do that. And obviously, if there's a child or something like that, or there's other kind of substantial risk, then the court will take that into account, and the media, the default will then be the reverse. But I think that this is probably a satisfactory middle ground that will at least allow the media to continue to report and provide greater access to justice for the public.
And I'm keen to get your thought on just that, the role of the media in ensuring that justice is seen to be done, and that even the broader public is taken through this process in as up-to-date a process as possible on the side of media houses.
Yeah, it's something that really helps people get a sense that there's process to justice. So we're now seeing, applications for media to broadcast bail hearings, whereas before it would have just been, the emphasis would have been on the actual trial. Now they're trying to broadcast bail hearings and getting permission to do that. And why that's really important is that it means that members of the public can sit there, they can watch live, they can then get feedback and comments and expert analysis from the various media houses, but it means that they get to see how these things work, and process for a democratic state is really, really important. It helps people see that when people make wild allegations, oh, the judge was biased, oh, the court didn't do this, they didn't hear that. The short answer is no, you can't do that, because you can see exactly how things take place. So we saw in another courtroom today, a case against President Ramaphosa also being argued, also being live streamed, the argument there. And again, it helps people see exactly, how things are being argued and presented. And that helps people see how our democracy works. And again, as I've said, given the perilous state that our democracy is in, anything that we can do and that our media can do to help build trust, help people see that there's process, and help people understand how justice works is a good thing.
And this is not unprecedented. I mean, many of us have been around long enough to remember when there was also a moment in the Oscar Pistorius trial, for example, when I recall there was an expert witness who didn't want her face shown, and even then all we could broadcast was just audio.
Yeah, exactly. It's not uncommon. And in some instances, the court has bent over backwards to make a plan. You would remember, for example, in the Eugene Blanche murder trial, that there the media were allowed to be present in the courtroom, broadcast live as it went ahead, until it was the chance of the child to testify. Then they all had to leave, and they sat in an adjoining room, and no one was allowed to broadcast the child's voice. So there are ways and means of finding really clever and effective means of making sure that the media there, they can still report, they can be there for every nuance, etc., and they can then file fuller reports. But at the same time, you can respect the rights of those that are there, because of course there will be instances where people feel that they may suffer damages. They feel that, for whatever reason, as we've seen today, and the court has obviously felt, well, maybe in this instance we have she has a point, and they've acceded to her wishes, at least to some degree.
Do we do a good enough job as the media, and perhaps even broadcast specifically, in contextualizing these live events as they play out in court often? Because it's one thing, we played by the rules, we stick to the facts, that this was the question, this one was said by the witness, but could we do better perhaps in putting proceedings into context and explaining them to people?
So I think where our media do broadcast live and where they do have a dedicated journalist there, often we're seeing some of our best journalists in the country in these courts explaining things, unpacking the legal arguments, and those I think they tend to do really well. Where there tends to be much more of a challenge is where they have to rely on other third-party reports, or where they are sending people in who just don't have the experience, because there's no longer that kind of mentorship, and that I think hinders, because suddenly then you get a case that's reported and you think, oh goodness, there was a rape case, and yet the person only got such a short sentence. Clearly the judge was biased. And, so I think that as a default, I'm not sure that we give enough attention to old-style court reporting, to making sure that facts are properly recorded and that context is provided. But I think generally when we do these live things, because the news organization is spending a lot of time and resources on it, they tend to put in some of their best people, and they make sure that they cover that thing from every angle.
William Bird, a pleasure to speak to you with Media Monitoring Africa.